Thank you. Let's give a big round of applause to our PTSA and our SAC for setting this up tonight. Our PTSA president, Ms. Jen Weimel. And of course, big round of applause for her. A huge round of applause. Ms. Napoli is our teacher who made this night happen. Thank you for setting it up, Ms. Napoli, Jennifer Napoli. She will also be our moderator for this evening, as you will see. And of course, our amazing distinguished panel, which she will introduce in just a moment. However, I want to thank all of you guys for being here. Students, can you please stand? Let's give you guys a round of applause. Thank you guys for being here. Don't be shy. And I'm going to turn it over to her. I'll be here. I want to see what happens, and I'm really excited that we have this opportunity. Ms. Napoli, awesome job. Take it away.
Well, I first want to say thank you so much to each of you for taking the time to come out and talk tonight about this important concept of mental health. And more than ever now, it's at the forefront of everything that we're doing, and it's something that we need to have an important and real discussion about. I am the SAC chairperson, as Mr. Sommer said. I'm Jennifer Napoli, and like he said, this is the PTSA president, and this is Jennifer Weimel. We're both very honored to put together this event for you, and we hope that you enjoy it. While we're here, though, what we want to say is that the discussion tonight may get difficult at times. If you feel that you need to leave the room, please do so without any judgment. Otherwise, please respect those that are here, and please understand that we're all here to find the resources and supports for our community and our students so that we can have the best mental health possible in Boca Raton. So please, with all of that said, enjoy tonight's evening, and we hope that you really appreciate the fact that you're here and that you enjoy the time that you spend with us. So I'm going to pass it down the panel and give them each about a few minutes to introduce themselves, and then when we're done with that, we're going to open it up to you for questions. So if you have a burning question in your mind, and you're free to direct it at one person or to the entire panel and see what kind of answers you get.
Hi, I'm Howie Ginsburg. I'm here because we lost our son Bradley at Cornell in the Gorge. And because of that, I ended up in probably the most important lawsuit in the history of mental health in this country. So I've just got some words to read to show you some misnomers and misconceptions about mental health. A mental illness is just like any other illness and needs to be treated as such. That is not the case now. People don't talk about it just like they didn't talk about cancer 30 years ago. There should be no stigma in any way whatsoever when discussing mental illness, and that word should be stricken from the vocabulary of anyone when discussing mental health issues. It's a great falsehood that people usually display characteristics prior to taking their lives. And if I might say so, one of the people I sued at Cornell, Greg Eels, made that statement, who is the head of mental health at Cornell Mental Health Services. Bradley was the last person that anyone would ever expect would take his life in the Cornell Gorge. His emotions were always right down the middle, neither too high or too low. The most rational, focused, smartest, kindest, most considerate, and best person I have ever known, who cared more about others than himself. He was looked up to and admired by everyone who knew him. He was humble and never sought any leadership position. However, he was the one person that everyone wanted in that position because of who he was. Our family was so close, we were each other's best friends. The last thing Bradley would have ever wanted to do would be to cause us the kind of pain that's not describable. Bradley had just been admitted into the AE Pi fraternity at Cornell and was ecstatic. His nickname was Smiles at the fraternity. He had the most magical smile of anyone. He was a straight A student at Cornell. He was majoring in economics and had gotten an A+ in the microeconomics course and said that economics was a snap. He had a good chance of being the valedictorian at Cornell and obviously would have done great things when he graduated. What happened? Bradley was suffering from severe depression, but hid it from everyone. Here are some statistics that a lot of people don't know. Over 50% of all college students will suffer from severe depression when one is severely depressed. The feeling is of being in a deep black hole that is impossible to escape from, and it seems like it'll last forever. Major studies show that at any point in time, between 15 to 18% of all, and I underline the word all, college students are seriously thinking of taking their lives. Federal District Court Judge David Hurd cited these statistics in his precedent-setting decision in our landmark mental health case, Ginsburg versus the City of Ithaca and Cornell University. And approximately 5 to 7% of these students will attempt to take their lives. The brain is far and away the most complicated organ in our bodies. Genetics plays, obviously, a huge part in mental health. Until the age of 23, the frontal lobe of the brain is not fully developed. The frontal lobe is what exercises rationality to overcome emotions. Much of suicide is impulsive. It is a misconception that it is usually planned. This misconception is dangerous as it can prevent the focus from being on impulsive suicides and how to stop them. This was an impulsive act by Bradley. Several days before, he had asked Sherry to send him his passport for a trip to Montreal that weekend with his fraternity. He had 4 wisdom teeth removed 3 weeks before. He had just signed up to be a camp counselor at a camp in North Carolina. If one attempting suicide is stopped, then major studies, including the Golden Gate Bridge study, indicates that 90% of all those people who are prevented that first time from taking their lives will never attempt it again. It is crucial that parents have discussions with their children about depression and other mental health issues. It must be conveyed to the student that the parent wants that child to always speak to them if they are emotionally disturbed in any way whatsoever. There must be an open door. When a child leaves home, especially if they've never been away from home before, then it's a must that there be a strong support system for them. Even though Bradley was homesick, he said he loved Cornell, his classes, and was ecstatic about his fraternity. But if depression is present and you are in a deep, dark hole without seeing a way out, then nothing else matters except escaping from it. I'd just like to say something about what happens in universities today. Universities don't have any appropriate facilities with regard, most of them with regard to mental health. Cornell thought they had the best. I mean, they had RAs in the dorms checking on the students. Our response to that was, they're not trained. And anyway, half the students that you'll see won't show anything if they're depressed. You won't be able to tell, so that's not acceptable. And while they had the ability to go and seek help, which was pretty good, they had an excellent excellent psychologists on staff. You have to get the kids to do that. The students have to do that. So that's the other problem, that the students have to know that there is this help, and it needs to be drummed into them, because it could cost them their lives, and then it destroys your life as a parent. One aside, my daughter was at University of Florida, and she needed to see somebody. She was having emotional, there was a 3-week wait to see somebody at University of Florida, which of course spends hundreds of millions of dollars on their football stadiums, which I guess is probably one of the more important things there, but they had no money spent on their psychiatric and mental health services, which I thought was a disgrace, because in that 3 weeks, how many students or people are you going to lose? They need to see somebody immediately. We were fortunate that we got my daughter private help, but for all the people, and that's University of Florida. That's one of the best universities in the state. So what is everybody else doing? It's really a disgrace, and that's something that needs to be changed. And how do you change that? Do you just go and throw honey at people? Please do this, please do that. And then they'll tell you to go screw yourself like they told me. They wouldn't talk to me after the fact, after I wanted to speak to them. And so, you know, that's why I eventually, besides a lot of other things that happened, after sending them 3 lawyers' letters that I wanted to speak to them about the gorge and why hasn't anything ever been done. You've had 28 deaths between 1990 and 2010, and nobody did anything because you didn't want to ruin the views from the gorge. Well, that was not an acceptable response, and that was the actual reason for that. So Cornell, after our lawsuit, was forced to put, and we were instrumental in putting having netting putting under the bridge. Cornell spent $8 million for that. Since then, nobody's taken their life. They also increased their mental health spending by $1 million. So they did something when they were forced to do it, but nobody else will unless people force the issue with them.
She's,
and I can't
one of our students has a question. I'll go right after her.
Ooh, okay, go ahead.
So like personally, like I take all my APs and I do 2 sports and everything, and like personally, like I've never heard that we had a school therapist until like this tonight, and like I never knew like all the programs that our school actually had, and I think that students should be more informed on these programs because honestly, like my friends and I, like every person in my class I know is like stressed about their schoolwork. I know all my friends like that are involved in athletics and everything. They all are stressed, including me. Like I go home to my single mom, and it's just like hard for me to kind of like cope with everything. So like I kind of never knew that like, we had even had these resources. And if I did know before, like last year, I would have started utilizing them. But now that I actually know, like I'll use them. But I think students themselves should be more informed.
Well, that was part of the reason of having this night, and I'm so glad you said something. And just so you know, too, Miss Townsend is a new addition to the school. So Miss Townsend wasn't here last year, but that's a part of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas bill, and everything that came out of it was funding more and paying more attention to mental health that sadly for many years wasn't a priority, and so I don't want to cut the boss off.
I just want to say, you talk about exactly your question. How do we know? That is what tonight's all about.
Yeah.
And I challenge, especially the students, because I can, because you go to school, but I challenge the parents also. You guys are here for a reason, and you came for a reason, but I'm going to add one reason, whether you included it or not. You're in our community, and that's why I asked, where are you coming from? Spread the word. And more importantly, and I could get beat up for saying this, but try to erase the stigma of about what is it like to get mental health support. Because when I'm from Boca Raton, and 30 years ago, when I was in high school, if somebody said, you go see a therapist, you were picked on and made fun of. And you know what? That's a shame. Because, I was an athlete. We're always about physical fitness. When do we take time to think about our mental health and our mental fitness? Isn't that just as important, if not more important? So I challenge everybody in this room to be a warrior on that front, to the point where, number one, we've got these services. Number two, we'll continue to have them, and the goal is to expand them as we go forward. And number three, please work together to eradicate the whole concept that it's not a good thing. Okay? So I challenge everyone for that. And like I said, I really credit our community and you guys for coming up to discuss this, our panel, because it's not easy to talk about. And I look at this as the beginning. This is not an event that's going to solve the problem. This is the beginning of a solution to what we hope would make this a better place. So we acknowledge that there's a problem. That's why we're here.
Yes.
We're really looking forward, how do we continue to build the solution together?
So I want to turn
That's all I had to say that part. Please don't, as warriors, get rid of the stigma of what mental health is a bad thing to get support. All of us, students and parents as well. Thank you. Sorry, I had to get off my chest.
Howard's wife and our son Bradley and Courtney, and like he said, we had no idea. If one person is saved because of us being here, it's the best thing that could happen. What I do want to say is that our daughter, when she was at UF, did go through a lot of anxiety and depression. We don't know if it was because she lost her best friend, her brother, or it would have happened anyway, but that's irrelevant. But I do want to say, I had to take her to 6 different therapists before she would say and start talking. She'd go, no, Mom, I don't like them, I don't want to go to them. No, 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 but I didn't give up. I kept going and going and going. Finally, I found someone, and it was while she was, I started when she was a junior and senior at West Boca. I couldn't find someone, and believe me, I tried. I took her to many different therapists that she would talk to. Finally, up at UF, the counseling center up there, with my phone calls, I got her to see the head of the counseling center, and she called me and said, Mom, no help at all. I said, okay. And I kept calling private therapists, and I finally spoke to a woman, and she said, I work in Gainesville. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I mostly work with college students. I work with depression. I work with anxiety. I work with drug use. I work with this. And I said, okay. And I told her how many people that my daughter had seen, and she met her, and it clicked, and she saw her for 1.5 years, and it really, really helped her. She's not seeing anyone anymore. It helped her, but it also made her very aware of her friends. I got so many phone calls from her, and a lot of her friends were West Boca kids that she stayed friends with at UF, and she would call me and say, Mom, and she would be worried about some of her friends. And I'd say, you know, and she said, and Mom, they went to the counseling center at UF, and like as Howard said, they told them there was a 3 or 4 week. She would call me like in tears and say, Mom, what should I do? And I said, tell them to call their parents, or you call their parents and tell them quickly, privately, to get some help if they have to, or do anything they can, but don't let it go. And so a lot of the students here, listen to your friends, help them if you can. Sometimes you don't even know that they're going through something, and you might get a little hint of something, but a lot of times they do talk, the friends do talk to each other more than they do to their parents, and you're a good resource to help your friends even get help. And it's just, we all do need to listen more, and as Howard said, Bradley, we never knew he had any problems. We wished we did, but
Thank you.
we didn't.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say that what I found at Cornell, which is, you're going to have pretty smart people there overseeing everything. What I found at Cornell was a huge resistance to do anything when it came to the Gorge bridges and people taking their lives there. And, you know, a fish stinks from the head. I mean, once we got involved in the lawsuit, which nobody would take the case because we had no law on our side. We had no damages in the federal court, according to what they ruled. And I got, finally, after months and months, I got an attorney from Google who never been in the federal courts, and I am an attorney, but I hadn't practiced law in 30 years, and I never did litigation. And we took on Cornell because of everything that happened. And, you know, there comes a point, and I was very heavily criticized because I'm a Cornell alumni. And, you know, all these people just threw darts at me. You know, how could you go against the university? And my main tack was, we changed the law, but what I knew I had to do was go against Cornell in the press and harm Cornell's reputation and get the case out there so we had no other way to win. Everybody wants to be a good cop, but sometimes, you know, nobody else had done what I did up there or in the whole country. And we set new law. But everybody wants to be a good cop and not do this and not do that, or somebody else will do it. And it came a point in time for me that I said, enough is enough. You just screwed with the wrong guy. with all the insults that you were doing, that you threw at me, and wanting to push everything under the bridge, and not trying to honor Bradley, and refusing to talk to me, and never turning over Bradley's computer, forensic computer report. And I just said enough is enough. You just screwed with the wrong guy. And we went after Cornell, and every time they hit me, and they did, they were tough, I hit them twice as hard. But nobody wants to do that. You can't always be a good, let me just ask a question. Is this the first meeting that's been done in all of Palm Beach County schools?
Like this?
I would think
I know in Boca area, this is the first one for high school. Because all they do is anti-bullying, but I mean, I can't speak for North Palm Beach, but like where we are, and all the Boca schools and everything that this is the first one.
Okay, there've been
I
at
think one
least
of the main
6,
high schools that even does the bullying.
Go ahead,
Because the schools I'm talking to, they have done.
Ms. Solnit, go ahead.
there have been at least 6 meetings on school safety, and one of the topics in there is always teen mental
But
health.
it's not like this.
Not
It's not like
This is
this,
what I'm
not
saying,
like
this
that.
is the first time.
But that's when
from
it's been
mental health.
addressed.
So my question is, a fish stinks from the head. What is Palm Beach County Schools, the Board of Education, doing? Absolutely nothing. And nobody wants to say anything about that,
I'll
because
say, I disagree with you.
Yeah, that's not true.
I'll disagree with you. Actually, credit to the voters. Referendum passed this past school year. That goes into effect for next school year. But just to agree to disagree. But the mental health positions, the training for our counselors, the training for our staff, the multi-tiered systems of support. I don't claim to say it's the #1 answer that's going to solve everything. But I think the more important thing from our leadership, and Ms. Napoli is working to become an assistant principal or a principal. Yep. Right. So the methodology, though, of her education going through the system, as well as Ms. Firestone's been through the same program. The methodology of the young educational leader is to really acknowledge the students like Alan. To where when that is happening, we don't want anyone slipping through the cracks. And, someone mentioned about school grade. Well, we care about school grade, but we don't really care. And quite honestly, the nice thing about the state, one thing they got right, is that when we help kids, our school grade takes care of itself. And we try to take that, to heart. But the point is that I think that's a big shift, is the fact that the new breed of educator, and this is not a criticism of the ones that have been in for a long time, that's not how I mean it. I'm simply saying the way that we're being trained. So our universities, and of course, like I said, our voters supporting the referendum to have positions, to have training, and to then further promote these kinds of things, like tonight. And of course, look out, like I'm not trying to paint a rosy picture, but the fact that you guys all showed up to this, we were scared to death.
Yeah.
We're worried about, okay, who's going to show? We have no idea. But I think we have to start somewhere, is my point.
And I also just want to state too, the district is a part of an initiative that, I learned about this year called social emotional learning. And they're starting in the elementary schools and teaching students how to regulate their behavior and their emotions, and they're making safe spaces in elementary school classrooms with sensory materials. I mean, I never had that as a student, ever. And so it is changing. Change is slow, unfortunately, but it is. I want to give the students a moment though. Go ahead, go ahead.
So it's pretty much about, us kids not knowing about these resources. And I know you said the challenge is to tell other people and even the parents, but even that I don't think is sufficient because it's not going to get to everybody in our school. And I was wondering if it'd be possible to just have an assembly for each grade, because I know we can't fit them all in one room at a time, just 30 minutes just telling kids that we have these resources, because I really didn't know anything
None of
about
us.
this.
I mean, this throughout this whole meeting.
Good
So,
One of the takeaways from this evening will be our vehicle for ensuring you guys are aware.
Okay.
So we'll determine whether it's an assembly or a common time or a script, whatever that's going to be. we'll come up with a concept.
And we will get student government involved since you are here.
Yeah, no, I was about to say, because all of
And
us
you're part of
over
that.
here have been, yeah, we've been so mesmerized throughout this whole meeting because we are so like interested on how we can get the word out. So I would love to, or all of us would like to meet with Ms. Napoli and Mr.
We'll be-
Sommer. Yeah.
Make sure we get their names before they go, because they'll be on the committee that will come up with the names.
I think that student who just made that comment should run for the Board of Education. Let me tell you what Cornell did, you know, just passing. Every kid in this school should know about this service yesterday. It's not that it should be going through, and I know these guys are doing a great job here, and I hate bureaucracies, and I know ask my wife, very hard to deal with, but at Cornell, after all the problems happened, the psychologists and the officers of the university went into every dorm room, and spoke to every student and let them know about the services, because it's not enough to say we've got it here, but nobody knows about it.
Well, I just want to appreciate each and every one of you for coming tonight, and it is 8 o'clock. I want to respect everyone's time. The discussion was really great, and it was, you know, a lot of things even learned for us, for the school, things that we could do better too. And I know the students have things to tell me later, so I'll get an earful later. That's fine too. Ms. Bimel, did you want to say anything? I want to thank each and every one of you panelists for coming, and
Well, just in closing, we've been talking at the end about family dinners. We actually have family dinner at my house almost every night. I cook every day. But talking to your kids is really important. My daughter's a freshman at the University of North Florida, and she actually calls me almost every day, and we talk for a good 30 to 40 minutes about what she had for lunch, how was class, going to the gym, her friend doing this, her friend. I never even have to call her. So it's important. I mean, she's become like a chatty patty. I don't think she was like this when she was living at home, but it's important to develop those relationships with your kids. And even if your kid, you know, if you're not that kind of person that you're, you know, all warm and fuzzy, that's totally cool. Encourage them to find somebody to talk to. The guidance counselors, our APs are really great. Mr. Agnew is awesome. And he was talking to a student today. She was coming in late, and she said, "Oh no, Mr. Agnew," and he sat down and talked to her. So I knew there was something going on there, but like it's a person, you know, to reach out to. So encourage your kids to find people to reach out to within their friend groups, and adults find, you know, we learned in Kids Safe years ago, who is your trusted adult? Ask them. Say, you don't have to tell me who that is, but have one or two people that, you know, if something comes up for you or a friend, that you have somebody to ask for help. So I think that's really important. And I think Mr. Sommer is hovering behind me wanting to say something coming. We'll try to post resources on Facebook, on our website, in the school emails, just to get information out. Don't go yet, Mr. Sommer wants to talk. I know you guys.
There's some stuff I love.
By all means, there's still some things to hand out, there's still some snacks. Thank you guys so much.
And please take all this food with you. I do not want any of it. Take this food. Thank you, everyone.